The coronavirus crisis has put a sharp spotlight on the resilience and sustainability of the tourism sector that many Caribbean islands depend on for their economic development. In 2018, the contribution of travel and tourism to Grenada's GDP was a whopping 56.6%. The 2019 IMF report on Grenada suggested that the sector has grown to become a very robust indicator of economic growth for the island. The same report, however, cautioned that the island's susceptibility to external macroeconomic shocks and potential declines in tourist arrivals will significantly impact Grenada's growth prospects. It is against this backdrop that the government of Grenada is proceeding with the commercialization of some tourism sites, first announced during the 2015 budget debate delivered by the country's Prime Minister. Today, we are talking Grenadian and Caribbean tourism with Grenada's Minister of Tourism, Dr. Clarisse Modeste. We are also joined by tour guide Glenn Alexander of the Hush Hikers Club of Grenada, Kenny Batiste of the Annandale Waterfalls Jumpers Association, and Barbara Ann Bernard, founder and CEO of Windcrest Capital. It's Sunday, July 19th, 2020, the anniversary of the first American Women's Rights Convention at Seneca Falls in New York. I am Kellen Bubb. Thank you for joining us. A pleasant good morning, everyone, and I want to welcome you to yet another edition of the Bubb Report. I am happy to be joined today by Ms. Barbara Ann Bernard, who is over there in the Bahamas, and we will be talking tourism today. But before we get to this morning's program, we have to acknowledge that the last week marked some sad milestones for the African American community. The civil rights movement lost two of its most ardent civil rights activists, Congressman John Lewis and Tyndall Vivian. The two men were described as moral leaders who commanded widespread respect in the African American community. And on a personal note, I also lost my cousin, my elder cousin Rupert Ambrose, originally from Primrose in St. David's, who lived here in the Washington, D.C. area for most of his life. He died at the age of 81, and I want to publicly honor Rupert for his dedication to his alma mater, Presentation Brothers College, Grenada, and by extension, his country. Certainly, my cousin Rupert would be dearly missed. He was actually considered to be Grenada's unofficial ambassador in the Washington, D.C. area. And so our task as a Kingston and an Ambrose family would be to continue his legacy of service, because that is something that he cared deeply about. But so we will be joined by Minister Clarice Modeste Kerwin shortly. But before we get to Minister Modeste, I have the pleasure of welcoming this morning Barbara Ann Bernard. Barbara, good morning and welcome to the Burb Report.
Hi, thanks so much for having me. I'm excited to be here with you today.
Yes, so Barbara, you are in the Bahamas. Are you happy to be there right now?
Very. Couldn't think of a nicer place to be quarantining. You know, we're so fortunate. We live in the Caribbean is such a beautiful region. And I think that's one of our strengths and something we should certainly leverage.
Right. Yep, definitely. So Barbara, one of the reasons I brought you on is because, so you are the CEO of Windcrest Capital. Could you tell us more about the work that your firm does with respect to development?
So we are a global long-short equity fund, and so we manage the hard-earned savings of people, and we travel the world looking for a dollar's worth of assets for 50 cents, wherever they may be. You know, prior to COVID-19, the majority of our fund was in emerging markets. And we've had to sort of rethink that because, as you and I know from being in an emerging market, they're often not as resilient as places like the US, or, you know, and you're sitting in Washington, D.C. and seeing the power that governments have there to print and send checks. And those are luxuries that our countries don't have. So today I have less emerging market exposure than I previously did, but I'm a big believer in sustainable development and by teaching a man to fish and giving a job as opposed to handouts. So.
Now, Barbara, in the article, you wrote an article that was widely published earlier this year, titled, I believe the headline of the article is Caribbean Tourism Has Been Decimated by COVID-19. But in that article, you make the point that the private sector needs to support tourism and leverage Caribbean survivability and sustainability in this period. And one of the things you said, and I'm quoting from the article, you said if the private sector in Caribbean countries were asked to share the government's burden of creating employment, thousands of jobs could be created overnight in a mutually beneficial way. Leaders of Caribbean nations might consider mandating that the condition upon which high traffic business such as grocery stores, home improvement stores, retail banks, malls, large office buildings, etc., may reopen is the employment of repurposed tourism, of a repurposed tourism sector. But could you expand on what you mean by a repurposed tourism sector? And we have to acknowledge that there is hardly any tourist traffic to the Caribbean now. Everything is closed.
Correct.
Yes.
Correct. So yeah, it's a major problem, yet the skill set is very valuable. Hospitality is an incredibly valuable skill set. So the question becomes, how do you redeploy it? We cannot count on the government to create that many jobs. But what does help businesses is when people feel safe. What helps tourism is when people feel safe. People will come to your country if you don't have a lot of COVID and they feel safe bringing their family there. And I'll touch on that in a minute. People will shop in your store if they feel safe going. So although that suggestion wasn't implemented as a mandate, I have noticed throughout the Bahamas that when you walk into a shop, there is someone there saying, please sanitize your hands, right? And so that is a job that was created. In addition, other jobs that have been created out of this pandemic are contact tracers. So I don't, the proportion of jobs that were tourism dependent here was huge. There's no way the government could create that many jobs. The other thing is there isn't a single industry in the world with the multiplier effect of tourism. If you think about from the moment you book that ticket to the time that someone's frisking you in the security queue, to the woman who pours your orange juice on the plane, to the taxi you take when you land, to the hotel when you arrive, the meals, the theater, the whatever you want to do, the trip to the beach, that's a lot of jobs. Think of when you talk about replacing tourism, it's really difficult, right? Because not many industries have that multiplier effect. And so tourism is 10% of global GDP. So this is a loss for every country. So the question becomes, what do we do with that very valuable skill set? And one of the ideas I've had subsequent to writing that article is a way that we could create a lot of jobs and repurpose that same skill set is call centers. And this work from home is a real revolution. And it's something that our country can take advantage of on multiple levels. So if, for example, call centers are about is client service, that's hospitality. We have a labor arbitrage with North America. Here, our minimum wage is about $4.50 an hour. In Florida, it's $11.50 an hour. In Canada, it's higher. So the likes of AT&T and Toronto Dominion Bank, they had outsourced tens of thousands of jobs to India and the Philippines. And what happened to them during COVID is overnight, those call center workers were told to go home, right? Everyone was forced to quarantine. And these companies had a real problem at the very moment that customers were calling in faster than ever. So there is a real trend to nearshore for some of these big conglomerates. So how do we win some of that business? And there is a precedent of the Caribbean excelling here. So for example, if I phone the Royal Bank of Canada from here, I think it's someone in the Turks and Caicos that's answering the call. Jamaica has done a really great job with call centers. So this is something we can do. It's a real opportunity. It uses the same skill sets. And the modern call center is not an auditorium with thousands of people sitting in it. It's a magic jack in your computer at home and the internet. And so this is an opportunity that I think we should explore. And so the struggle has been for me, looking at that idea, is to find a client who, and what I mean by that is, how do we get someone to divert a call? Because we're in COVID, companies don't want to take new risks, right? But there's got to be someone out there that is willing to say, you know what, this is a win-win. I want to diversify my call center risk exposure. I want to nearshore it. There's a labor advantage. And so I'm really hopeful about industries like that. And my big thing is, let's not waste a pandemic. Every crisis is an opportunity. And let's be frank, we've had it really good for a long time, right?
Yes, Barbara. Let me expand on that, and that is a question of again the quality of jobs. There is the argument that a lot of these jobs are not necessarily sustainable by way of the wages that they offer employees. How do you respond to that claim? I mean, we have seen that in Haiti, for example, where there has been accusations of exploitation on the part of multinational corporations.
Oh, no. I don't think anything should be exploitative. Absolutely not. I mean, these are actually quite skilled jobs. If you're a company and you want someone to answer your client's call, that's a very valuable service. That's not minimum wage, right? In Miami, that's a $15 an hour wage job. So you're talking about 2x minimum wage here. And the thing I like about that idea is you can hire tens of thousands of people. This is a big industry, right? So if you want to have an impact quickly, in an industry that doesn't require a lot of infrastructure, right? That's matching the wages people were earning in the hospitality industry in a lot of instances. I think I'm open to lots of suggestions. I'm just trying to think of one that would have, a big impact quickly, because this is a crisis. We don't have years to build factories and years to diversify. And I love the idea of having more tech here and in every Caribbean country. And, there's an argument that there was a huge advantage to having your server and IP here, because a sale is then deemed to have taken place here and is tax advantageous. However, tech doesn't create a lot of jobs. And what we need today is jobs. But I'm all for that too. And there isn't going to be one solution. It's going to be a number of solutions, right?
And yes, Barbara, how are you leveraging that knowledge base with Caribbean governments? Because it's all well and good for us to have these policy discussions, and especially within academic circles and in financial circles and things like that. But how do you plan on ensuring that perhaps this becomes something that message is evangelized, if you will?
Helton, I have to say thank you to you for having me on. This is a great first step. Mm-hmm. I wouldn't say that I really have a voice in the Caribbean. I'm an investor who just likes to think about how to solve problems. So to the extent that you found that article interesting and you wanted to talk to me about it, I'm very flattered. If it's helpful, wonderful. Let's get the conversation going. One of the things that I think we could do as the Caribbean is create an alliance. And we are stronger together than we are individually. And individually, we might not have a say with the cruise ships. Collectively, we do. And this is something where I go back to let's not waste a crisis. I'm not saying we should unionize. I'm saying, why don't we establish a pro-business alliance? The cruise ships are really struggling. Carnival Cruise Ships right now is losing $250 million a week, but they need us. And the top three cruise ships are Norwegian, Carnival, and Royal Caribbean. Collectively, they have 75% market share, which is why we've never had a voice when we go as little islands individually. But collectively, North American cruises are 55% of their profits. Collectively, we have a say. So can we learn from each other in this crisis and think about who is doing what well in the Caribbean? Let's look at our brethren, right? Can we reimagine what we want tourism to look like when we emerge? And for example, you talk about who would divert calls for a call center to get that industry going. Why isn't Carnival, who's using our beaches, sending some jobs this way too? Right? Mm-hmm. So collectively, we have leverage. Collectively, we can say, no, we don't want you dumping in our waters. But the other thing is, that's mass tourism. What we also have is an opportunity in a higher caliber of tourist. And when I mean that, I just mean a tourist that spends more, puts more money in our pockets. And I come back to that point about consumer confidence. Barbados is doing something very interesting. They've just offered 1 year permanent residency, if you will, or visa is what they called it, where they're enabling people to come work from Barbados for a year. And their hope is maybe they'll like it, maybe they'll start an industry, maybe they'll create jobs. But if they don't, they've brought hard currency, they've put people in restaurants, right? And so, the hotels are, like the mega resorts are suffering. But the smaller Airbnbs and the staycation, and I know in Grenada you have wonderful ecotourism, right? That is going to do well. So it's not all a disaster. Mm-hmm. And so I'm excited about that. And so the other thing is, right in the Bahamas, they don't like us to dine inside. They want us to eat outside because obviously COVID is less of a threat. But how wonderful. Why isn't that an opportunity to pedestrianize a street and have some outdoor cafes? Every city I've ever been to, that's worked beautifully. And, we have wonderful weather all year round. Let's take advantage of it, right? Other things like, what happens in eras of pandemic, unfortunately, is the arts suffer because theaters are closed. Like even if you were in London or New York, there's no Broadway for the next 18 months, right? And so, but if you had people, live entertainers outside, right? We just have to reimagine tourism.
Mm-hmm.
And if we're clever about it and if we work together, it might not be the worst thing, right? We might end up more diversified with the type of tourist that we desire. And so, let's look at other islands. Let's look at Cayman. They, in my experience, have been less xenophobic than some of the other Caribbean islands. And what I mean by that is they invited foreign expertise to come in and develop industries, right? So they're a world leader in banking. Bermuda's done it in insurance. And, I can tell you, I spent quite a bit of time in that country. It has the charm of a Caribbean island with the expertise of a London or New York.
Mm-hmm.
And that's very special. And so what can we learn from that? Should we be selective about our immigration and have people come in and train and diversify? These things don't happen overnight, but they certainly happen. You have to be, what's the word? Like, not principled, but specific. You have to know where you're going.
Right.
But it's
niche, I guess, niche specific, perhaps.
You can do.
Yeah. Uh-huh.
So I think there's lots to learn from each other. I think there's lots to do by working together. And we're going to have to.
Mm-hmm. Bob Marisher is making an interesting point about Barbados. He's saying Barbados is an exception rather than the rule. They have a 98% literacy rate and a rock-solid democracy, which seems to be working well for them.
Fantastic.
Yep.
Shouldn't we all aspire to that?
Yep. And then Anthony Howard is making the point. Anthony Howard says, too many of our best and brightest youngsters are busy working as clerks in resorts and hotels. We need to get away focusing on traditional tourism, which kind of resonates with a lot of the things you're saying as well.
I agree. Yeah. The thing about COVID is it's been awful, right? And I have a tremendous amount of empathy for people that have lost family members, for businesses that have gone under. It's awful. There's also a silver lining, and that is that it has accelerated disruption, right? And what that means is you can build a business from anywhere in the world now and access a global market. So one of the things that I would love to see is more coding schools in the Caribbean. Why not? Right? So, and this is, you have to start with the kids who are young, but there's no reason that we couldn't participate in that. I agree. The highest and best use of our talent shouldn't be, a receptionist in a hotel.
Yep.
Right?
And to that point, Leo Lenny Edwards says these jobs may be meaningful, meaning a lot of the hospitality jobs, and necessary given our current climate, but they're also precarious and low-wage jobs.
You look at unemployment in the U.S. right now, double digit. You look at unemployment everywhere. I think there's dignity in every job. And the entrepreneur, in my opinion, is the most the most underappreciated person in society, because by creating jobs, you create the ability for people to go to the grocery store, to provide for their families. That's very important. So I don't believe in criticizing any job. All jobs are great, right? It might not be a great job for you, but it's a great job for someone. And then it's how do you build on that, right? And
that is the question. How
more jobs on top of that? But I wouldn't ever advocate for getting rid of any job.
Well, I don't think. I think that the talking point really has to do with ensuring that that the wage that is earned is actually a living wage, right? And I think that is an important consideration. But Barbara, we'll be right back. Stick a pin. Thank you for joining us, folks. We will go to headlines and we will take a break. Let me do that.
So I'll just do it on my computer.
Okay.
Yeah, because I've been trying a little while and it's frustrating.
Unfortunately, Mr. Speaker, the commercialization of our sites did not proceed as quickly as planned. But having completed additional technical work, we will soon invite expressions of interest for the following sites: Fort George, Fort Frederick, Annandale Waterfalls, Granitang National Park, and others. They will be leased under contract to capable firms and individuals. In this regard, I wish to announce that government has decided to relocate the headquarters of the Royal Grenada Police Force. Fort George is a tourism site.
All right, folks, we apologize for that break in transmission. We had some technical issues getting Minister Modeste on. Minister Modeste, welcome to the Bub Report.
Yes, you had me sweating, but thank you. Good day and good day to all of your listeners. It is indeed a pleasure to be with you.
I trust it is good sweat.
It is a good sweat.
All right, Minister Modeste, thank you so much. And Barbara, you know, as I indicated, I'm joined by the Minister of Tourism from Grenada. And I would like to segue into with Minister Modeste here. So, Minister Modeste, I want to begin. Barbara was making some interesting suggestions with respect to reimagining Caribbean tourism in this period. And one of the things she suggested, she pointed to Barbados as a good example with respect to how they are reimagining their tourism. What can you say within the context of Grenada? What is Grenada doing to also reimagine its tourism sector?
Okay. Yes, I am aware that Barbados has run off with a couple initiatives, and we too are doing our own to woo visitors to our shore. Our primary target at this time is the Caribbean region for very obvious reasons, because the numbers have been pretty good, pretty safe. And we have some new Caribbean airlines. Well, not some really, not new, because Caribbean airline CAL is not new, but they have not done a lot of inter-Caribbean travel or intra-Caribbean travel. Particularly in recent times, we have Inter-Caribbean Airlines, which is new to us in Grenada. We have not worked with them much in the past, but now they're coming on much stronger. We're strengthening our relationship with SVG Air. As you know, that airline works primarily between Grenada and Carriacou, and did give us some connectivity with St. Vincent. Now they're offering connectivity further afield, like Barbados and some of the other islands up north, and that would augur very well for us. So we, our targets have been mostly Caribbean islands. Our videos, our marketing, our promotions have been to them to let us savor what each island has to offer. Because although we're very similar, we are different in some ways, and we have different experiences that each one of us can have. And so our promotion have been in the tourism sector, have been primarily towards that, but we've also asked all people to look internally. So we launched a Paradise at Home, which persons commonly call staycation, where we have spoken to the accommodations and the other attractions to start looking at our locals, our Grenadians, as potential guests as well, and to target them. So our launch has been primarily geared towards that. Now we have tied up our flights with SVG Air. We didn't have it for a while, and we've finalized arrangements, and they have set out their schedules. We have spoken to the some of the hotels who are willing to participate, and we are beefing up the attractions between the Ministry of Carriacou and PT Martinique Affairs and our tourism GTA, Grenada Tourism Authority, and the ministry. We are finalizing our package to create excitement. One has to be excited in one's own country, see our country differently, because we take so many things for granted that other visitors love, and they're awestruck by it. Our wonderful Grandans Beach, or our Granitang Lake, and other things local, or cocoa, how we make it, getting a cocoa bath and so on. And so we are promoting region-wide and internationally, because soon our international flights would start, our local attractions like the Chocolate Fest, and so many wonderful things cocoa can do for your body. They're targeting women mostly, and I don't know, and I have to apologize to you, Mr. Bob, but I think I have to speak to them at having it across the board for both sexes.
Okay, Minister, can you adjust your camera or your laptop? Can you bring it forward so we can see
you? Need to see me a little more.
There you go. Much better. Perfect.
That's right.
All right. Okay, Minister Modeste. So we will get to a burning issue that has been percolating in Grenada, and I had the chance to speak with some folks from the tour guide community about commercialization. Before you came on, I did run a clip with Dr. Mitchell in which he spoke about the commercialization, which is different from privatization. I think that distinction has to be made clear. But there was some concerns. I want you to respond to those concerns after I play those clips, and we will get to your reaction at the back end. Thank you, Minister.
So I'm happy to be joined by Mr. Kenny Batiste of the Annandale Waterfalls Jumpers Association, and Mr. Glenn Alexander. Glenn, could you enlighten us as to your designation, please?
Well, basically, I am one of the founding members of what we call Hush Hikers Association. And as the name suggests, Hush, it was formed during the COVID period, where our major interest is to hike to all the available waterfall on island, and as the country opens up, possibly neighboring islands and international.
Good. So the government of Grenada indicated that they were going to start the process of commercializing a number of the tourism sites on the island. One of those sites would be the Annandale Waterfall. Mr. Kenny, I want to come to you first. You're someone who is part of the Jumpers Association, right? The guys that jump over the falls and so on. How long have you been actually doing that work there?
Well, I'm actually been jumping for 20 years.
20 years?
Yeah, over 20 years, yes.
Wow, that is a long time. I assume you are someone from the Annandale area. And what was the nature of the consultation that took place with government on this?
Well, they didn't actually consult anyone, you know, in terms of the commercialized aspect of the Annandale Jumpers, waterfalls, the area. You know, we just actually hear about it, read it in the newspaper. Until recent, that from the Minister of Tourism, we heard that it was commercialized and it's gonna go by the end of the month. And I think it's gonna be, you know, a feedback on the villagers, especially the people at Annandale, which is our bread and butter, you know, which is our main source of income. And especially some of the businesses, especially the small shops, especially when the cruise ship season comes around, we actually depend, our main source of income is actually tourism, and we depend on that. So the people who actually they commercialize it to, I hope that they're going to get us incorporated and get us on board. They're gonna have a meeting actually with us, especially the jumpers, because what it is I'm hearing through the grapevine, you know, a lot of things will change, you know. I think jumping at the Annandale Waterfall is one of the main aspects at Annandale, especially when the visitors come to Grenada. They come to actually see the jumpers. You know, they you know, it's for years. It's something that been there for, I mean, from, you know, since before I was born, you know. And I think to take it away from us, it's going to be really, really painful. Yeah. Yes, I think what I heard the minister said in terms of development, yes, development is always, there is room for development. But at the end of the day, we don't need to throw away our tradition. We need to actually keep our tradition. Because when you look at places like Norway and all these places in the bigger countries, they do it. And I mean, a small island like Grenada, when you come to Grenada and you have jumpers and all these things, I think it's exciting. Everybody may not like it. Some people may think it's risky, but at the end of the day, I think it's good because it's a bread and butter. I mean, I've been doing it. I mean, I looking to hang up my boots soon. Some of the kids who is in the community, I think they're gonna follow. They're gonna look forward. You know, it's, you know, a job could be created for them. The stakeholders, if they can actually create something like whereby they can actually charge a fee, to, you know, whereby we willing to pay. I think all we can, you know, we can all get on board and work.
Yes, so that was two tour guides in the Annandale area. One, a jumper, he's been there for about 20 years. How do you respond to the concerns that these two gentlemen raised?
Okay, and I think they are legitimate concerns. And only this past week I was in a program and it came up. I probably brought it up because I realize it's a concern, and I am always open to listening to concern and seeking solutions. And one of the things I said was that we have to go back and have consultations.
Okay, Minister, I don't mean to cut you, but why were there not consultations before moving forward with the proposals?
That could take a long explanation.
Okay.
Sometimes but the ministry did have consultations with the workers. Whether they included the jumpers I am not certain of that. But with I think the focus would have been more on the workers who we have to pay and how they will be redeployed and what has to happen or whether they'd be engaged by the company. That was primarily the focus. And so unwittingly, we may have left out certain people. It wasn't intentional. And my commitment is to go back to the table and speak to them. However, in our agreement with the developers, one of the issues that we addressed there was that persons who were being gainfully employed, especially persons who live in the area, should be included in whatever is going on. So while we have not specified every area, it is certainly an area that we can raise again with them. And they have been very open. They are Grenadians, they're locals, very open to inclusion. And I believe that this can work. So this will be my mission going forward to get Annandale going. But I also want to say that we have to find a way to marry the existing, the tradition, and grow it in such a way that it is desired by people and that more people come. And what we have been seeing in Annandale is that we have been having less visitors than before. My last visit to Annandale, maybe towards the end of last year, in discussions with the staff, they were saying we want more people to come. But interestingly, more people are coming by cruise, more people stay over, passengers are coming in. And then why is it that less people are going into Annandale? So it begs that question. And it means that we have to up what we're doing while not modernizing it and damaging our environment, but to market it better, maybe to organize and manage how we do it better so that more people can get more out of it. So the gentleman who is the jumper, I'm happy that he said they would like to be engaged. I would love to see that as well, locals doing the jump. But it would be also useful if visitors can sit down in the pool that the falls create there and maybe enjoy it a little bit more. So there could be a mix. And from our experience, visitors look for the experience. They want to mingle with the locals. They want to mix. That is what, by and large, people are doing. Some people want to be isolated. They want to do things by themselves. And we can accommodate that too. But we will work to enhance what is already done so that more people can enjoy it. So I take the point and I'm willing to work with them on it.
I'm glad to hear you say that, Minister. With respect to the actual local managers of the Annandale Falls, you indicated that you're going to be making a public pronouncement. Would you want to give us some indication as to when that will be done? Perhaps you can make that announcement right now.
We have to have some drum roll for that one.
Drum roll.
We're planning a nice little a launch, and we will have to tie up all of these concerns before. I believe they are easily done because of the attitude of the people and the caring of the locals, and because we have from day one said that has to be a factor to be considered. I don't think we have many obstacles that we cannot surmount, and we'll be making a nice little launch.
What is the timeline for that, Minister? Do you have a timeline?
Within the next month. Within the next month.
Within the next month.
Yes,
okay.
Consultation and tying up ends. Yes.
Now, there are other sites in Grenada that in the Prime Minister's 2015 budget presentation that he intimated would also be commercialized. They include Grand Etang, I believe he mentioned Mount Carmel, Fort George, Fort Frederick, and a number of other sites. Is that characterization correct, or what am I missing here?
We did list some, but because of some of the hurdles we saw and the time frame, we decided, let us pilot this concept in Annandale. As a matter of fact, initially we started with some areas in Grand Etang, and I want to be clear because the rainforest area will not be listed out. And even there's a sort of rainforest area in Grand Etang too that is going to be managed by forestry. And while the owners would have use of it, not the owners, the developers would have use of it, whatever has to be done, they must be sanctioned by forestry. So we're going slowly with that. We want to see that one, how it works before we send out the RFP. But Mount Carmel, I don't recall that one being on the list. Certainly Granitang and Fort Frederick were on the list for commercialization.
Okay, so we have some comments coming in, Minister, and I want to give you the chance to respond to those. So Ernesto Jose says it's a habit of this administration never to get its citizens involved, but you always hear it from outside media. And then we have another comment here. Can you ask Minister Modesto if she's able to confirm that, quote, there are no private beaches in Grenada? We need to understand the status quo before we talk about opportunities for all. Okay. Then we have another comment here, Minister, and I'll get you to respond, of course. Staycations, the staycations idea in Grenada is a good one. I applaud her for that. Jamaica has it too for the cottages in Negril. Interesting comment. Minister, quick fire responses from you.
So let me take the last one, staycation. What I find is it has been working because some of the hotels which have been closed, they've started off with that and they've done amazingly well. And it shows that Grenadians love their own country and they're enjoying it. I'd like to see more going out on tours, but I know our numbers have to be regulated according to COVID guidelines. The next one about government not consulting, it happens with every government that sometimes they do, sometimes they don't. But I want to say it's not a policy of our government. Maybe sometimes we don't always take it to the level that it should be done, but we have had consultations on several different things, and we are going to continue to do that. We're going to strengthen consultation because I think it is important, and it is our government's policy to do that as well. So wherever there are weaknesses, we're going to work on it.
Okay, Minister, finally, and then I'll get to Barbara. I know Barbara has been sitting there for a wrap-up. Barbara, thank you for waiting in the wind there with us. But what we want to do is that we want to have a wrap-up and, a wrap-up about reimagining what Caribbean tourism would look like in this period. So thank you for your patience, Barbara. But Minister, there are a number of tourism construction projects that are on the pipe. Can you give us a status as to whether those are on hold in this period or whether the developers are proceeding with those projects?
Well, in terms of the actual construction work, very little has been done, primarily because construction was one of the areas that was on hold for a long time based on the COVID guidelines. However, behind the scene work was and continue to be done in terms of paperwork, tying up ends, and I know that some of the projects are ready to start bringing in persons into Grenada. The St. David projects, the two projects at La Sagesse, they are ready to bring in workers and to employ workers locally as well. We are seeking to have a balance in that. Sometimes it can go a little bit off in terms of the balance between locals and foreigners or outsiders. And this is something that we have to keep a handle on. The project at Livera also is ready to go. So as we seek to coexist more and more with COVID and to ease the fear and the paranoia that there is attached to it, work will begin very shortly because the groundwork already is in place to do so.
Minister, that La Sagesse project has come in for heavy criticism.
I know.
With respect to the fact that an entire environmental sanctuary was uprooted. How do you balance that as a government? I mean, granted, let's be fair, that property was private lands. And so that was the result of a private sale, we understand, between the owner and the developer who bought the land or leased the land or whatever the case might be. But at the end of the day, could you really speak to that tension? Because there was some concerns that that an entire habitat for birds was completely obliterated.
I know it was impacted completely. I'm not sure about that one. I know there were some concerns. I believe that there would have been some discussions on it. But Kelon, is very difficult, and it's a balance, a tight balance that we have to make all the time between development and the preservation of our environment and what we do. And so sometimes some things get lost in that. And I think more and more we have to be conscientious of that, and in the planning, ensure that that is done. Even sometimes we insist on an EIA for all of these sort of projects. But even when you do that, some things that are valuable to our communities or to the environment as a whole for the country do get lost. I hope and I expect that this whole sanctuary has not been obliterated. That is not what I heard, but I will check for myself and see.
And Minister, I would love for you to follow up with me on that, because we need, again, my purpose here is objectivity and clarity, and to raise the bar of the discussion as opposed to engaging in hearsay. But I would get back to the comment section, and then I would bring Barbara in as we wrap up today. Anthony Howard says, we need to get a better understanding of what tourists enjoy when they come to Grenada. Do we have a questionnaire for tourists to find out what they like and what they don't like when they visit? Minister.
Yes, we do. In terms of the cruise ship tourists, the cruise lines have a well-organized system of getting feedback from their clientele, which they share with us periodically. So we do get that and have a sense of what they like. In terms of the stayover passengers, our Grenada Tourism Authority, we do surveys frequently. We have also a good idea, and we're guided by that. And that is why we believe that the environmental things, the preservation and the proper management of it is very important to our tourism industry, because they do love that. They like the hikings, they like the river tubings and all of these local things that they can enjoy. They like the flora and fauna at Grand Etang, but some just like the Grand Anse Beach to laze on a chair. So while there is a variety, more and more people are looking towards the environmental factors, and also the high energy ones like the hikings and the hash and other things like that.
Okay. And Barbara, I would bring you in. We would now have our wrap-up discussion here with respect to reimagining tourism in the Caribbean. And Barbara, I would start with you. Again, we discussed here some of these tensions that I discussed with the minister with respect to environmental preservation and a sustainable tourism product. Barbara, any final thoughts from you with respect to how the Caribbean can move forward in this period, outside of what you said before, which you provided some very, very salient and suggestions?
Well, Kellen, I just wanted to thank you for this wonderful podcast, but also to the minister. I've learned so much from you both. And what's really interesting for me is to see how much we have in common. You could have substituted the word the Bahamas for Grenada and had exactly the same conversation. So I go back to the point that we have a lot to learn from each other, and we're stronger together. We will get through this. Our beauty is unrivaled, as is our geography. And I will tell you, if it is a ray of hope, since we allowed tourists back in the country, our ports are full. And I think for Americans, they feel safe taking a boat here because they're contained with their family. And my hope is that they keep sailing all the way down to you. So tourists are coming back. They can't stay away. And I'm sold. I can't wait to come. I want to go jumping and see your cocoa leaves and river rafting. It sounds beautiful. So congratulations to you both.
All right, Minister Modeste, any wrap-up comments? But before we do, there's some other comments that are getting in. Folks are coming in late. I guess everyone had a late Sunday today. But let's get to some of the comments here. What is the status of Camahan Park? I don't know that. Minister?
They're talking about ownership. It belongs to the people.
It belongs to the state. It belongs to the people.
To the state, yes.
Okay. Someone says, let's see here if I can get to. Someone says, Kipling Francis says, yes, there is consultation, but not with the people who would be most affected. I think we covered that before. Wilbur Thomas is saying, we need an independent EIA, not from someone that is affiliated with the government. Cassandra Mitchell says, as the Minister of Tourism, can she address the status of the Blue Growth Master Plan at the sites listed for development, or I guess commercialization, through this initiative? Minister?
Yeah, I want to suggest to you that this comes primarily under the Ministry of Environment, and so the details, I probably would not do justice to it. While I have an idea of what is going on, I want to suggest that this is a major project for our people. Blue Growth does suggest environmental awareness and environmental preservation, and I would like to leave that for you to discuss with the minister or someone from his ministry.
What minister? I'm sorry, what minister?
Minister Simon Steele.
Simon Steele. Okay.
Simon Steele is responsible for that. But I just want to echo what Barbara Anna said. The Caribbean is still a much sought after region. Whether it's for cruise, whether it's for stayover passengers, we have proven ourselves. We have been resilient. We have rebounded time and time again. And even as we go to each other's countries, going to the Bahamas, I enjoyed so much, so many things I can do there that maybe I cannot do here. And so many things that we have here that are so natural and beautiful that you can enjoy. So it's going to take a while to rebound, but we'll be amazed. Tourism is resilient, and as fragile as it is, it does come back. And I have a lot of hope and expectation that it will, and that we will work to make it sustainable as well. These are my words.
Minister, finally, you have perhaps the longest serving female member of parliament in the Commonwealth. Did I get that designation incorrect? I believe you're probably the longest serving member of parliament. How long have you been in the parliament serving?
It's about 20 years.
20 years. 20 years.
Yeah.
What does your political future look like?
Well, I'm living my future. I'm living my future. I have been to many ministries. I have served health in the time of SARS and bird flu and other things, and we've gotten through that. And Ministry of Works, I have served there during the aftermath of Ivan. And what we did is history, really. And so I have that past behind me, and I'm working on the present and the future. Tourism, I believe if tourism is the future. One cannot tell that one can be in a ministry forever. And I always say that politics is not a profession, really. You can be in one day and you can be out. And I'm well aware of that. But I believe I'm living my future now, trying to rebuild and coexist with COVID. We've made a great start. We've kept Grenada safe. And I'm just happy to be there.
Now, Minister, there were some concerns that some viewer comments that came in with respect to your stewardship of the St. Mark constituency. Concerns around lack of development there, concerns around the failed shrimp farm project. But of course, we are out of time. But these are some issues that we have to flesh out, Minister. And I would want to welcome you back, because I think we need to have a discussion with you as one of the longest serving members of parliament, against the backdrop of these concerns that your constituents, some of your constituents have raised with respect to development or lack thereof in the constituency. But let me thank you, everyone. And again, to the point about private beaches, again, the minister said there are no private beaches in Grenada. Let's hope that that would always be the case, that all beaches remain public. And
let's hope towards that. And don't forget that national development does impact every nook and cranny of this country. And we have done that very well. So thank you, Mr. Bob, and we'll talk again.
All right. Ladies and gentlemen, on the Bob Report, thank you so much. Minister, don't go yet. Barbara, don't go yet. We'll have a green room discussion before I log you out. And I just want to thank our viewers for joining us for yet another edition of the Bob Report. Thank you and have a wonderful Sunday, everyone.
Thank you too.
Don't go yet, Minister. I want to connect you and Barbara.